Here with Leonarda Jonie, along with my friend Arthur Kwon Lee. We're just going to hang out, bullshit. So last night I tried to go to your comedy show because I wanted to see if any women are funny, but you were canceled.
I was canceled. That's correct. Apparently, the Phoenix New Times wrote an article about me where they basically associated me with a neo-Nazi group. So I'm going to sue them for defamation.
Yeah, good. We need more lawsuits about these people.
Yep.
A little Jewy, but
it doesn't matter. You got to fight them with their their fuel. They
fight.
intentionally wrote a misleading article. They wanted people to deduce that I was a neo-Nazi, and which I'm not. By the way, I'm not affiliated with any group. I'm an individual who speaks my mind about what I believe is true. And when I find out new information, if my old view is wrong, I correct it. Yeah. I don't advocate for any kind of violence. I don't say anything actually hateful or bigoted. Mm-hmm. I'm funny. I'm sarcastic a lot. I do a lot of satire, which goes over people's heads. That's not my problem.
People miss jokes quite often.
Yeah, that's not my problem. That's your problem. And your feelings about me are your problem.
I think all three of us are similar. We're not hateful at all, and we're all called anti-Semites and hateful and racist, but really we're just coming from a place of love. I don't think it's anti-Semitic to not want to kill children.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's racist to notice different tendencies among groups, to prefer your own. I don't think it's racist. And, you know, when other, like, non-white groups prefer their own, totally acceptable. But this is the problem that we're in. These labels are meant to censor you from telling the truth. Mm-hmm. They're meant to shame you, guilt you. It's Marxist tactics. It's very violent. They're the ones who accuse us of violence, and they're constantly waging violent tactics against us. Doxing, threatening to kill you because they feel justified because they're the victims.
Yeah, death threats, and even our families. You were just dealing with that. They'll go after our families.
Yep.
It's terrible what they do.
Yep.
And it's very telling. You know, I was thinking about how, as a comedian, I feel like comedians are sort of at the forefront of free speech.
Yep.
Because de facto, because you are a comedian, you have to be open in your dialogue. So in a way, you dealing with this lawsuit, you are fulfilling the role socially by you dealing with this animosity and pushing against this narrative, because you know you are a free speech comedian in that regard, and I feel like comedians are supposed to take up that mantle.
Well, yes, you're 100% correct, and there's a couple of problems here. First of all, people do not understand what the purpose of free speech is. This is not a right granted to us by the government. It is a right that God has endowed upon us, and the amendment says that the government shall not infringe upon your God-given right. And the reason that protection exists is so you can tell the truth. Now, in that sphere, right, because in order for us to protect your ability to tell the truth, we have to kind of allow you to say whatever and then allow people to verify it. We've now come under a situation where free speech is for anything except telling the truth.
Yep.
The minute you tell the truth and it is an uncomfortable truth, now they want to shut you down.
That's why I think comedians are so important, genuinely.
Now, what has happened with comedy? Comedy was protected in this way when, in the beginning, they used it to subvert the majority Christian white culture. Then it was totally protected.
Yeah, then it was fine.
Because they had a goal to dismantle that. And once they got that power, now comedy is not that at all. Comedy is a mouthpiece for the machine. That's why you will see horrible comedy. That's why Netflix has a new special every week with another Pakistani transgender lesbian whatever who only wants to talk about how they chop their genitals off or whatever.
Representing your fellow transgender.
But and so what's happening, right? People are tuning out because we know the truth.
Bullshit, yeah.
We know the truth, and we're done. Who's tuning in? People that are asleep, NPC liberal types, dysgenic types who want to have camaraderie around all being fat losers together, and then in that misery they find company. That's why they're finding this coalition against groups that shouldn't even have anything to do with each other. Like they'll have these multicultural, multi-gendered, multi-sexuality oriented, because they're like, we're all bound together by a victimhood. But here's the nice thing that people should know and give them hope: that coalition is super tenuous because it's not really based on anything real. And they and as soon as you put in a little bit of energy, they fracture. And that's what our focus should be, you know?
And you know, this is why, you know, I'm not surprised when I see somebody like you with your temperament as a comedian pushing against this multicultural agenda. Because if the point of free speech, the purpose of free speech actually is to have conversations about who's normalizing the narrative, right? That's the whole point. We can congregate about that. So as a comedian with that bend and that predilection, of course you're going to go down that angle. And in a way, you've taken that mantle as a comedian who's standing up for that in that regard. And it's really interesting. Like, why don't more comedians talk about this multicultural agenda in this regard? Because I pretty much only know you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Little clips, but not a lot.
So they'll touch it a little bit,
no,
but you're you're not oblique about it. You're very like direct about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, here's the deal.
And a woman, which is crazy. Apparently.
We don't know
I
yet.
see a woman pushing.
Apparently the journey's out on my femaleness.
Apparently, yeah.
But I'll say this. It's like the acting world. I was an actor before, and I was a liberal before, you know, and this was before the liberals got real crazy. And I was in New York.
I think a lot of people were liberal. I was liberal kind of.
You know, but everybody knows unconsciously what the accepted narrative is, and that if you go against it, you're out, and that nobody wants that heat. And a lot of people are just so focused on being famous and getting money, and they don't care. They have no morals. And it's beyond just that. It's not like they know the truth and then they're saying something different. They intentionally block themselves from knowing the truth.
Yeah, they force themselves from seeing it. So.
Because there is no benefit for them to investigate, right? Because here's the deal. If they spend any energy investigating whether this narrative is true, there's one of two things that's going to happen. They're going to find out that they're right, and therefore they wasted time investigating it. But they kind of know, more likely, that they're going to discover that it's not, and then they're in a predicament. Then they're in the situation where either they're going to have to speak out against it, and then they're going to be shit out of luck. They have no faith in themselves, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. Or they're going to do what they know they're going to do because they're cowards.
You're coward, yep.
They're going to pretend that they don't know, and they're going to parrot the narrative. And when you do that when you know the truth and you don't speak it, you destroy yourself.
Yeah, you destroy who you are. I think you really just nailed it with that. They kind of know it's true, so they intentionally avoid it and don't look.
Exactly. I did.
No, it's easy to do. So who was running the movies when you were doing acting?
Who was Listen, I may have turned down a few. I may have turned down a few Harvey Weinstein deals.
Yeah, Weinstein.
Well, you know what you're saying is very true. I mean, look, you've had all these different guests on, and every time I have these conversations with people, what we'll call base people, right, who are aware of this problem, there's always this twofold path, and it's about your integrity, or, you know, I mean, I'll use comedic language. I feel like there's two types of comedians. There's either the comedian who's actually truly free speech and wants to talk about uncomfortable topics so we can laugh about it together, by the way. Yeah. That's the point. That's beautiful. Yep. It's actually very healing socially. Or you're what I call a useful idiot comedian. Jimmy Kimmel's, Trevor Noah's, these kind of people who are basically DEI-style puppets. Yeah. And I describe it this way. One is a throat laugh and one is a belly laugh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Bullshit laugh to just pander. And one is genuinely funny. Like yesterday, when your fiance was performing, there's moments where it wasn't a choice. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. You know? Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, I'm not going to name, I guess I already did, but there's comedians on the other side where you're basically going like, yeah, we're good little, you know.
We're going to all applaud together.
They put signs if you go to those places where it says laugh, applaud.
I know.
I've been to the filmings there. They literally goes like laugh on the thing.
I almost got thrown out of TRL because I went one time, you know, TRL, Total Request Live, back in the day, MTV. I was there like a studio guest. I wanted to see it, and they would tell you cheer or whatever, and I was like, I don't feel that, and they were like, wow. If you don't, we're gonna kick you out. I was like, kick me out.
Yeah,
you know? Kick out for not cheering loud enough.
Yeah, but I'll tell you,
manufactured and fake.
I'll say this because you know you guys are hitting on a point. But so here's the deal: anybody who's watching this, when you're an up and coming comic, you see who gets rewarded. So you know which avenue to go into. And this is why you will see a lot of female comedians who only talk about sex, their vagina, having abortions, being whores, because that's what's getting rewarded by the industry. And the industry is rewarding that intentionally. They want that to be cool. That's cool. Yeah, that's the counterculture. Yeah. Hey, young girls, don't you want to have a mixed race baby? Huh?
You got to read the Talmud.
No,
You move right on up.
Well, back to comics, the reason I always make fun of women in comics is all they talk about almost always is what a whore they are and how gross their pussy is. It's like,
Yeah.
this is not funny. I don't want to hear about it.
It's not funny. It's not cool. And this is my qualm with like third and fourth wave feminism, because I do think there's a place for first wave feminism. Like, people don't get it, but when men held all the power, they also had no checks on their power, so they could be
Which we
abusive.
preferred.
Yeah, well, a lot of men who want to be abusive prefer that.
Well, not the abusive part, just the control.
But
I see what you're saying.
they do prefer that. That's why they get so mad, because now they have to earn.
No, we don't want women walking around with the black
No,
eye.
reality, reality, I do agree, though.
Actually,
There were some good points with wave feminism, but it's gone to complete.
Well, because now it's switched to what it used to be, where women have all the power. There's no checks on their power, and they're like crazy banshee witch covens who are doing spells on men, aborting their unborn children.
but this is why we need people like you. Like, I'm telling you, because like, me, like, I'm not like a woman bashing guy.
Yeah.
But and I honestly probably equally, and you know me too, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I equally criticize men about the delusions.
We both.
But if I say something about female nature that I have to admonish, I get called obviously a sexist kind
By
of pig.
women.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of useful to have a woman's face. Someone like no, seriously, it's useful to have you saying these things, because they can't use that term against you.
No,
'Cause
but
you're a
they'll
woman.
call me as a
Yeah.
pick-me girl, and I'm like,
But still, it
I'm just
still
like,
gets across. In a
I'm
way,
like, I don't need to be a pick-me
there's lots
girl.
of those on Twitter, but you're not one of them. I do see those girls that
I do. I know too, but I actually
But no, I
have.
definitely
I've
don't
gone
see
through
that
the
way.
whole spectrum of things, and I've seen what a lie it is. Women, you gain absolutely nothing by having casual sex. Zero, nothing.
Right.
All you do is waste your energy. And women used to know this all the time. They were the prize, so men would jump through freaking hoops to get with them, and what that would mean is they would provide a value.
Yeah.
Now you've given. You think they care that you banged them and left and didn't care? They're like, thank God.
I think that's the biggest
So
side.
it's like sex is like so easy for guys
Yeah.
if you're doing successful. So it's like a lot of times guys like it's causing a lot of problems for the guys too.
Lots of
They're not
problems.
having kids young. They're just thinking, oh, I can have 5, 6.
Yeah, I feel
girlfriends.
like young women need to be told that sexual attention is not relationship attention.
And it doesn't mean anything.
No.
It's nothing. I've been getting sexually harassed since I was 8 years old.
Yeah, I think it's
By
more,
Jews, probably. By the sounds of it,
I think women have, it's a lot more hurtful for them too when they're having like casual sex.
It's
more
very
than men.
damaging. It's
Yeah.
very damaging. And, like I'm no saint,
Yeah.
I was married very young. I got married very young. And then after that, because, the guy ended up being totally manipulative. I didn't know anything. That was my first anything. I was 25.
Yeah.
First anything. So nothing. So it'd be in this sort of toxic relationship, and it was my first relationship. So I was like, is this normal? I don't know if this is normal. I didn't know if it was normal. It turns out it wasn't. So after that, I was like listening to the feminists or whatever and doing some
all
casual
been there.
dating.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd wake up with this intense shame and guilt, like I had done something wrong and something awful and felt this emptiness. And of course, I talked to my coven witch fucking liberal women, and they'd be like, it's internalized misogyny and blah, 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 blah. And now I realize, no. That was my internal moral guidance system saying, hey, you don't want to be doing this. And you didn't get anything from this. And it didn't take long. It wasn't like I was like whoring it up,
Yeah, even as a man, I think we were like, we're encouraged. Your friends are like, do this, or you're sleeping around, and you're like, it doesn't hurt us near as bad. But there's like times for a man, like the second we finish, you'll know. And sometimes you just get that feeling of just absolute disgust, and that's when you realize, like, okay, you should be a little more selective what you're doing. If you
Yep.
feel disgusted as soon as you're done, it's like, you
I
shouldn't be doing it.
I agree with you, and this is something I say. It's like it's not just because there is a nature that I believe God has put in us that is for the benefit of both. Like, when a woman calls you to a higher standard, suddenly you find something in yourself that you didn't even know was there. And it gives you a value. All of a sudden you start, everything else is dehumanizing. And here's the deal that people don't understand, like men, same thing with men that are just having this casual sex and they're treating these women like objects. And the moment you're doing that to her, you're doing it to yourself too. And then you break your ability to connect, see a human. And this is my big thing with porn. This is why it's so tragic for this young generation. Like, sexual interaction and all that, the genuine part of it comes from a deep and abiding love for the person that you're with. And when it comes from there, it's a completely different experience than this, lust-driven porn thing. Yeah. And the beauty in that is so beyond what you're getting there. Now, if your first exposure to sex is porn and casualness, you think that's what it is always. And you have no idea that you're even missing anything. You don't have any clue that that's even a possibility. And then it's sad.
Yeah, and I didn't grow up with porn, but now the young generation has access to it on their phones, just endless amounts. I'm so thankful I didn't have that when I was young. I couldn't imagine just, constant.
But that's a good point. I mean, it literally blocks them from that possibility of experiencing that reality even. Like, it literally blocks them.
They don't even know it exists. How sad and tragic is that?
Porn is just evil.
I agree. That's why I don't think they twisted the law to say free speech covers porn. No, it doesn't. It does not. And it 100% should be illegal. It is damaging.
It should at least be really hard to access. It could fully pull from the internet because these kids can get it. Before, if you were watching porn, you had to go to like a shady area.
Yeah.
You had to get a magazine.
Yeah, the jerk off
theater. Jerk
off theater. So you knew you were being a slime ball. If you were in one of those places, you would look at yourself and be like, "Oh my God, what the hell is wrong with me? You're a weirdo creep." Or theater's jerking off. Obviously, something's wrong with you. But now guys can just do it at home. And young kids, I read somewhere like the average age kids start watching was like 11.
I know.
Well, I mean, look,
I looked it up.
Like, this is a crazy fact, but like, for example, and I know there's right now controversy about E. Michael Jones, but he wrote this book called Libido Dominandi, and he was talking about how what's going on in Gaza with this evilness. The IDF was flying helicopters over,
dropping porn.
and dropping just crates of pornography. Yep. And why would you do this? Because they're already predicting that's going to be a generational war. So they're trying to already have the men neutered and weak.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
They forced their TV on pornography too in the West Bank. They made it so the TVs would only play porn.
Because it's literally
it's a weapon. It's a weapon against the
social cohesion. It literally is a virus for social cohesion.
And you think this is one of the things that I've noticed about evil is it presents something to you like, oh, this, don't you want this? Isn't this great? Doesn't this feel good? Don't you just want to eat cake all the time? Isn't that great? Don't you want to just get off? Isn't it great to just bang whoever you want? And in the beginning, you're like, oh shit, this is awesome. And why wouldn't God want me to have this? He's such an asshole. He doesn't want me to have any fun. And then you get into it a little bit. You go, ew, I'm eating cake all the time. I feel sick. I'm malnourished. Oh, my brain's broken. I can't get off unless I'm thinking about some.
Well, I mean, Leo, you
stuff.
recently shared that you became an Orthodox Christian, and I think that's beautiful because that's sort of the whole Christian rite of passage, which is that salvation is tumultuous. It's sacrificing. It's there's a labor to it.
Yeah.
And the path to hell, it's pleasurable. That's what people don't understand. Like
in the beginning, it's pleasurable.
You get to hell because it feels good. Look at all these women. Look at all this food.
First got
hedonistic.
Yeah,
exactly.
I fell into that, and you just go. But then you just need like more and more and weirder. Like, oh, and you need two, and just keep pushing, and then you realize you're not getting any real connections with these girls.
That's what the cross represents. And you also realize you're carrying your weight,
hurting girls too. And I love women. I make jokes about it, but I generally care about girls. And some of these girls, you're actually they get feelings for you, then you're hurting them, and you realize. That's evil if you're hurting these women. I would excuse it by like, oh, I'm not lying to them. I'm being honest. I'm not dating them. So I would excuse it in my head, but then I realized I was lying to myself.
Yeah. Yep. That's amazing that you came to that because, you don't have to. Mm-hmm. And the society would never fault you for it. They'd be like, oh, you're a Chad,
It's so easy to be like, well, I told the girl I'm not in a relationship.
Yep. I know.
So I'm justified. That's what I justify to myself.
Yeah.
And I realize it doesn't matter. You're still hurting them because girls think they can go along with things and they can't. I don't think they're meant to have sex without getting emotion.
Yeah, and the culture is telling us to be like you guys, and that if we can't be like you guys, then we're weak and we're anti-feminists, and don't you want to be cool?
Get an abortion.
Get an abortion. All this stuff. But yeah, I did convert to Orthodoxy, and I got there through Conspiracies. Because I started digging. And I had a crackhead on my neighborhood in Harlem, and this was during COVID. And it was like, "What's up, Randy?" And Randy, the crackhead's always
no one else to hang out during COVID.
Yeah, and he's like smoking a cigarette on the corner, and he's like, "Everything that's happening now is in the Bible." And I was like, "What page?" And then I started investigating, and then I realized I saw the emails of like Hillary Clinton sacrificing children to Moloch.
That's some weird shit. Yeah.
And then I read Father Seraphim Rose's book, Orthodoxy and Religion of the Future. And he dispels everything. He dispels even from the League of Nations, the United Nations, and how that's an anti-Christian movement. The woman who started that, I forgot her name, but she was married to an evangelical preacher who was very abusive to her. And so she had a vendetta against Christianity, and her whole point in that organization is to take down Christianity. It's the foundation. They called themselves, initially, I think they called themselves Lucifer.
Always a war against the cross.
And then,
Clearly a war on Christianity.
yeah, and then they put it down to Lucy. And I said, wait a second. If these people at the top of power are acting like everything in the Bible's real, and they're in power, and then they're telling the rest of us that it's not, what do they know?
That's a great point. And when you mentioned the Hillary Clinton Moloch thing, clarify for the audience, there was something part in there. What was it? Marina
Abramovich, yeah.
She was coming over to Hillary's
Pizzagate.
class to do spirit cooking, which is a satanic ritual with blood, semen.
Yep.
So they're literally coming over to do and who knows what else they're doing there. It could be sacrifice. Who knows? They're coming over to do these. Like, why is Hillary Clinton, who was running for president at the time, doing sacrifices with a literal witch?
Here, this is a great metaphor I have for what I think is in our world. And it's hard even because the veil isn't fully fallen from my eyes. I got to say, I go back and forth in Christianity.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's a hard thing. Because,
That's normal.
But I
Yeah.
will say this, I used to watch this show Once Upon a Time on WB. It's like a terrible written show or whatever, but it was fun for me. And it's based on, all the storytelling, right? And it starts off with like a really normal, materialistic, modern town. Nothing seems out of the ordinary. There's a weird vibe, and there's a woman in charge. She's like the mayor or whatever. And at the end of the episode, they kind of reveal, like they go into her office, and she's the evil witch from Snow White, and she does some kind of spell with the apples or whatever. And it's suddenly revealed that she put a spell on the whole town to convince them that magic's not real. None of those things are real, and they live in a material world. And what you have is these powerful beings in there, these powerful fairy tale figures who have forgotten who they are and have no access to their power. And to me, that is a perfect metaphor for the world that we live in. We operate like the only thing that's real is this material plane. And the whole spiritual thing and everything about God and all that, that's not real. So we've cut ourselves off from our source of power. We have no idea who we are. And I believe that this is actually the reason we're so unhappy. We are longing for something that we deep down inside know, but our brains are constantly telling us is not real.
Yeah, no, there's clearly more out there. There's clearly a God. There's clearly something. Another added benefit to church is it brings you a community. People don't have communities anymore.
Yep.
You probably do through comedy, but regular person has no community and hardly any friends.
It's true. It's true.
And I'll add here that, here's how we know we live in an absolute atheistic material society, because material truth actually doesn't give any meaning. Material truth tells you how things are built and what things are at a structural level. But moral truth is actually a totally different philosophical conversation. And this has been something that's been very difficult for many philosophers to contest with. But the reality is that so much of what we care about isn't material. It's like many of the missions and incentives that we actually believe in are archetypal. It's beyond, that's not physical at all.
Yep.
It's a belief. Mm-hmm. That's a culture we're trying to denote. It's invisible. And it's so important. This is why I always advocate people to really be grounded spiritually, because if they don't have that, then they're actually not even conscious of why they're fighting.
Yeah.
And what religion does, if you do it properly, is it makes you aware of almost the backing principle of why you're being active. And most people are it's just so disconnected. Yeah, it's so disconnected.
But everybody just seems like they're too smart and too good for religion. They're all just too smart. Everybody's just too smart. I can figure this out by myself. I'm like, really? So for thousands of years, humanity has needed a guidance system and instruction in this department, but you figured it out because you have technology?
Yes. Also, every single society all through history has always believed in religion and something. And there's also people have always been seeing other things out there, whether it's angels and demons, or sometimes they'll call them aliens, or different culture might call them elves or gnomes. There's always seeing other beings out there, and there's never been a society that's thrived without a god.
I agree, and I think there's a couple of things like what Arthur was saying. People always say, "Well, why do I need to go to church? And is it a sin if I don't go to church?" And I don't know. I can't answer those questions, but I do know that what I was told and what I learned and what I've experienced is that we are spiritually sick, and going to church is like going to the hospital. You're getting nourished, and you're getting fed, and you're getting instruction that will serve to ground you and give you strength against the outside world that wants to destroy you. Why would you go into battle without armor? And there is, for me, the reason I went into Orthodoxy, some random, I had a Instagram friend, Albanian, who was a former Muslim and converted. And he was like, you should I didn't even know Orthodoxy existed. I thought it was a Catholic church. I didn't know where to go. So I went, and the minute I walked in, I was like, something's different here. I've been to churches before. I've been to sermons, but I was like, I was overcome with a sense of love, being in the presence of something holy, truly. And it was like, I was just like,
moving. It's moving.
Well, you just feel like, oh my God, how could I live without this?
Because there's some churches, like you said, you don't feel that. You walk in, you don't feel any magic, don't feel any presence.
I mean, that lesbian preacher.
If you don't believe people have a soul, then it's empty. It's just materiality.
Yeah, what are we here for?
And then therefore, again, morality is again, if you believe a person has a soul, then there's a right and a wrong. But if you don't believe a person has a soul, morality is what you can get away with.
That's correct.
That's the problem.
Well, which is the society we live in. You're correct, actually.
Yeah, look at all the atheist books.
Is it Rumble time? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, the atheist books. It's the society we live in. It's a merchant class value system. And there have been two value systems at war with each other, I think, since the dawn of civilization.
Slave-minded. Yeah.
I think you had the sort of noble, what I consider European value system of higher morality. And I'm sure other cultures have it. I'm sure the African cultures have it. I'm sure, I don't know about the Indians, but...
We're going to get into that next.
I can only speak to the European. I know the Albanian value system is very based on integrity, loyalty. Your word is all you got. And you break your word. They're that old, if you read the Iliad with Homer, what are the value systems there? Honor, truth, hospitality. That's what we're based on. We're the old Illyrians. So we still have that value system. That is separate from the mercantile value system. The mercantile value system is how can I profit? It doesn't matter what I do to anybody.
Yes.
The more that I gain, I don't care whose expense, the more that I get elevated in the family system, in this system. And, we took for granted this old world system that had ruled over us and preserved culture and had people not sell themselves out for a dime. And we just took that for granted, and we have been overtaken by a merchant class value system.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Usury.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing, I thought I was in part of the right, anti-war, free speech right. Then October 7th hit, and I go, oh, these guys are all bot. You realize they're all frauds. They're just saying things
NPCs.
for money. Yeah, and I would never lie for money. It's just not worth it, especially if something I cared about. Maybe for the dumbest lie, but something I care about, I just don't know how. That's telling the truth is so much more important. And like you said, the word. I think keeping your word is absolutely crucial to me. I won't be close to any people that don't keep their word. Whether it's girls.
Yeah, that honor you're talking about, that honor and righteousness, that's the gold, brother.
Yeah.
But that's the value system that's in you, and you're a warrior. So you have the ability to fight and defend yourself. Therefore, it's less likely for you to fall into that. Although, warriors can too, because it can be corrupt.
You get a lot of fighters being fake.
I know.
Tempted with a lot of distractions, I imagine.
But that all goes back to what we were talking about comedy earlier. It's like, are you going to value the merchant class value system? Or are you going to value the truth, which comes with a tremendous amount of risk, but it comes with a tremendous amount of reward because you discover what you're made of. You know how many I have been getting canceled from the beginning, and I said things that I didn't even think were that controversial, like saying Ukraine is a money laundering scheme. And then I had this organization called NAFO. That was my first docs. That was my first life-threatening stuff. And I was like, I thought this was something everybody knew.
Yeah, it seems like pretty normal.
That was a government orchestrated thing because Obama created this group called NAFO online to push and promote the Ukrainian agenda bullshit thing that they were saying. And this is not about the Ukrainians. Yeah. This is about the elite group that has taken over Ukraine, and we all know who they are. And that was my first time that I was like, oh my God, telling the truth leads to this. And of course I felt bad and I felt like, oh God, I did something wrong. But once those slings and arrows kind of settled in, I found within me the fight. And I was like, nah, I'm going to go harder.
And I think even before you talked to this homeless guy who said, go to the Orthodox Church.
Well, no, he said it's in the Bible. And then a friend of mine online said, check out.
But you had the spirit in you, because I must say that you're very rare for a woman, because you are.
Well, I was beat.
It's typically men that.
well,
I was beat into a masculine role.
Maybe it helped a little.
well, you're in a male-dominated comedy space.
That's right,
as well.
yeah.
You care about the truth and all this in this regard, and it's just interesting, and I think that goes to show, because you have that. You might be spiritually aware. You might have a spiritual predilection, because why would you be constantly interested in these, these fields, and even the bridge burning and the culture war fighting? It is predominantly men.
Yeah, that's
even
true.
So, even in that.
Well, I do think that is the Albanian in me, because we are warriors. That's like, I mean, we're in the Balkans. It's constant warfare. You don't survive without that. And so we have constant people trying to crush us, and communism and all that. And we only survive because of this warrior spirit. So
yeah,
I
wanted to mention that, because the history of Albanians and Christianity, when you watch the map of Muslims constantly taking over, the Albanians are always pushing that away, and they remained Christian when everything else has become a Muslimified, right?
Really?
So that's
they
what I was going to get
held
to.
off the Ottoman Empire in the
They said, we're going to stay Christian no matter what.
One guy who is our hero, he was a hero in Europe. His Albanian name was George Castrioti. George Castrioti is how you say it in Albanian. And his Islamic name was Skender Bey. He was taken as a young child.
Albanians are fighters.
He was taken into the Ottoman Empire's army, and he learned everything from them. But when he was taken, because this is what they would do, they take them as tributes, and then that way they could push them in. His father said to him, never forget your land, never forget where you came from. This is what nourished your mother and your father. This is what nourished you. He was 8 years old.
Wow.
He got to of age. He fought for them, and he realized what they were doing, and he went back to his tribe, and they didn't know. He thought he did amazing. Fought them, defeated we're talking about a small, tiny tribe. He had to unify 12 Albanian tribes who were always at war with each other. It was the same thing. He was like, all right, you guys could be at war with each other and die, or we can unify. Launched a crazy offensive against the massive Ottoman Empire, because he knew all their tricks. He was their number one military strategist. Held off the Islamic invasion of Europe for quite enough time for the rest of Europe to gear up. And he went to them. He went to Italy. He went to Serbia. He went to Britain. He said, hey, I need help, man. I'm fighting these people. They all turned their back on him. Yeah. They were all like, no. And he still did it. And it's amazing. He's like, this is an inspiration. These are the heroes that we need. So after him, the second generation couldn't keep it up, and the Albanian population did fall. But by that time, the rest of Europe had gathered enough, and they still credit the reason that they're not Islamic is because of him.
I think this just shows, though, why a few people can do stuff. People are always to me like, oh, shut up, you're not going to help anything. All you do is cost you money. But it doesn't take
one guy.
Things. Yeah.
This was one guy.
I think us together can win this battle. People are such cowards, and just pisses me off.
You just can't be afraid.
Yeah, it's like people are so scared. I'm constantly. I've had a ton of people be like, "Yeah, I'll come on your show, but I just won't talk about that one subject."
Right.
Famous people, like some guys aren't on yet. Not gonna name names because friends, but just
tell us who they are. No, I'm kidding.
But we can't. I fully agree with everything you're saying, especially the people that are in Hollywood and those things. But I can't talk about that.
It gives me pleasure hearing that you have this understanding of your historicity as well. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because it connects you, it grounds you.
Well,
and that is why you're a fighter.
That is why. That is. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
I feel like for a girl, you're really confident and you demand respect. I don't feel like you can come to these male-dominated industries, and I don't think people feel like they could walk all over you, or at least
from you. Yeah. No.
And the fact that you're a fighter, I didn't mean to cut you off here.
No, it's fine.
Mansplain. But
mansplain it away.
The reason why, because she's such a fighter. This is why Barry Stanton passed his torch to Leonarda.
Yeah,
I know he could have chose all these men, but he goes, no, it's gonna have to be you.
What an honor. Yeah, I wasn't really following the Indian thing. I remember there was just
why don't you get into that a little bit?
What happens whole India thing?
Because this is the lore question. It's like if we're saying, hey, we're gonna have Leonarda on, this is gonna be like, you gotta elaborate this here.
All right, here's the deal. Okay, this is genuinely what happened. I was at my gym. And it was full of Indian guys. And I was so fed up. I was like, first of all, you guys are not even working out. I mean,
You're
taking a weight and you're like, what is this? This isn't a workout.
And they're wearing their polos for some reason.
And they occupy everything, and there's such an arrogance and an entitlement. And I'm like, dude, some of us are trying not to be fat, and we're working really hard, and you're taking up all the machinery. Now, would you get out? But anyway, I made a really lighthearted joke. It wasn't really like hateful.
You're a comedian.
The softest joke I've ever written in my life. I said, my gym is full of Indian dudes, so now I got to compete with them for the 10-pound dumbbells too.
I mean, that's actually funny.
It went viral. It's got like 37 million views right now, okay? They were such pussies. It was unbelievable. Oh, yeah, 10-pound dumbbells. I will show you. You're the stupid
12.
bitch. You think we are so weak. Why don't you come and fight me? I will meet you with 10 guys. I'm like, you're not really showing me anything. So I was like, oh, this is the game you guys want to play? You think this is bad? All right. Did some research, found out about just how horrible their actual culture is and how much they pretend with this arrogance, found out about the rampant raping that they do, found out about how they treat their women, found out how much corruption is in their whole economic system, found out how they come here and they destroy our economic system. They invade tech companies, they take over, they do rampant nepotism, hire people who are totally unqualified, fire whites who are qualified, take credit for work that white people do, white coders that have to clean up their work, rampantly lie, blatantly lie about this stuff. And I was like, yeah, well, now you're going to get it. And then I went in hard. And then
Are you one of the main people that started off that Indian?
Yeah, I was in that early group that started off the Indian thing. And then they took it to the next level. Then they doxed me. They doxed my family. They wrote a bunch of emails to my dad. I'm like, my dad doesn't even talk to me. So
You're like, good, piss him off.
Yeah, he's like, they're like, your daughter is a racist whore. I hope you're disappointed. And my dad was like,
I know.
Yeah, I know. And of course I'm disappointed. She's a stand-up comedian.
Oh my gosh.
So I was like, and then they started mass reporting me in their group chats. And I actually know for a fact that somebody on our side, very loser bitch, and I know who you are, and you better watch it because I know where you live too.
Oh shit! You're gonna get it.
And you
get any names or no?
Yeah, you run your fucking mouth, and you think you ain't gonna get it, but you're gonna get it.
Can't wait to see that.
I will destroy you, and because you're probably 110 pounds, and I know you like to call me fat, but that fat's gonna be useful when I kick your fucking ass.
Boom.
No, I want
So-
to this fight, whoever it is.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, yeah.
She knows who she
Set
is.
it up.
She went ahead and reported me. Was getting the Indians to mass report me and get me banned, and they succeeded. They got my account taken down, and I had to go everywhere. Shout out to everybody. I mean, Sam Parker was advocating for me.
He went
Arthur
hard,
was
yeah.
Sam
advocating for
Parker's
me.
always very loyal.
Very
Stu
loyal.
Peters was pushing it.
love
I
him.
shout out to Alex Jones. Like, he had me on. He was like, I'll
Yeah.
reach
I
out.
think I kind of missed most of this Indian thing. I heard about it a little bit, but somehow I like missed the Indian. I've usually got along with Indians, but I seen it came out Twitter one day and it was this Indian.
But Indian Twitter is very sensitive.
But that's the
they're like
thing.
Jews apparently.
They were so sensitive, and I wasn't saying anything that was a lie. I'm like, you guys are weak. You guys are
but
soft.
this is what I don't like. And here's the thing: you can talk about this more than anyone as a comedian, but it just boggles my mind because it's quite obvious that if somebody does a joke, how do you disarm them? You laugh with it, and everyone else moves on.
Yep.
And this is the thing: it's like all these demographics are getting so trigger happy and showing this insane knee jerk reaction. You're just inviting way more people to criticize and basically castigate you. That's what they don't understand.
Asian jokes all the
Yeah,
time.
oh yeah,
They
exactly.
never freak
Yeah,
out.
literally, all you have to do is laugh with the joke, and they go, "Oh, well, what's the point?"
They call me a fat, balding bitch all the time. And I'm like, guess so, but I still have all you guys trying to fuck me, so I guess you guys like fat, balding bitches. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't, it doesn't bother me because number one, I've never been insecure about my attractiveness, so you can just get off of it. I still have low self-esteem, but it has nothing to do with my attractiveness. You know, I understand this about my psychology that I'm like, it's a break. It's like I can understand objectively what people are saying, and then there's an internal experience of yourself that comes from early development, things that you just have to accept and work against and be conscious of, you know? But this is what
Shameless.
it's what alerted me to the fact that you cannot bring in these cultures that don't understand what you're doing, because they actually will dismantle your value system. Because one of the things that would piss me off so bad is that they would literally say things like, I'm all for free speech, but this is just pure racism and that's not free speech. And I was like, actually, it is 100% free speech, and you can get the fuck out of this country and you could take your bullshit out of here, because this is what we're about. And if you want to come here, you better subdue yourself to the fact that you're going to get made fun of for being a dirty fucking Jeet. You might have to bleep that out.
Go.
No,
Let's
adapt to
fucking
our
go.
crossroad, get
my
the fuck
heart,
out.
my heart goes out to you.
We talked about it yesterday, though, with the other Korean guy. If you come to America, you adjust to our culture. You don't
Thank
come here
you.
and try to bring it. And
Thank
like,
you.
yeah, that's
Albanians don't do that.
But she makes a very good point, which is that an uncomfortable truth is not every culture and genealogy wants to assimilate. And if and if that is an uncomfortable fact, for the sake of our boundaries, we need to be cognizant of that.
I have a bunch of friends in the tech industry, and they say the Indian thing is a big problem, like you said, of only promoting each other, treating each other better.
Bad work.
Yeah.
Bad work.
And they're bringing them over on these visas, giving our high-paying jobs, these Indian workers.
And just learn to laugh with the joke if you can. That's the thing. That's the
Or
thing.
shut the fuck
yeah,
up.
exactly.
You can only lift 10 pounds.
And one more thing. Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, getting threats from an Indian is like getting threats from like some wheelchair. Like, no offense, but you know, it's
They
not,
did post my address where I was living in Austin, and I was like, show up. I was armed.
I was gonna also say, like, anybody who's already a public profile who's speaking this like unapologetically, it's like, yeah, the doxing can be creepy and weird, but really it's like we're not gonna speak up unless we've done the homework and understand the risk and we're comfortable with it already. Like, we're not stupid, so it's not cool, but like it's really nothing. They're just smoke and mirrors anyways. They're just a bunch of losers.
Yeah, I mean, but it shows though someone could come, like with Nick, someone tried to kill him. So obviously,
Yeah, that's true. That's
obviously,
true.
I say armed, but it can be a real threat. And that's what Twitter left that up, or X.
That's
well,
crazy.
it's a load of shit, and that's what you got to understand. A lot of these people don't want free speech.
No.
They don't want that.
They don't.
They latch onto this victim mentality because it's an elevator to power they didn't earn. To have power, you've got to fight your way, right? You have a physical power that you've earned through fighting.
Yeah, years of hard work.
If somebody comes in as a victim and they know they're not going to be able to compete with you on that level, so they're going to rise up to, you're just a racist, blah, 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 blah. And suddenly now they can harness the whole power of the state. They don't have this power, but they can harness the power of the state and weaponize it against you. They know exactly what they're doing, and they know that they're full of shit. Because you want to talk about a group that's racist? The Indians, they're so racist against. They have a whole caste system.
Yeah.
And I've talked to them in person, and you should hear the shit they say about the quote unquote Darjeets, or I don't know what they are. They're not even human to them.
Wow.
So that's why I'm like,
It's very Jewish.
Your blatant hypocrisy to me, I'm like, I'm not going to stand for it. And it's like, you know, that's the society and culture that America has created, and they don't owe it to anyone to let you in. Especially not if you want to come in and ruin it and bring your bullshit. Oh, you like your culture so much? Great. Stay in your country. Oh, why don't you want to stay in your country? Oh, because your culture has ruined it.
And you know what? It's funny because there is a simple solution to all of this. Febreze.
They need more than that.
It's Arthur's going to build chambers, but it's instead of gas, it's going to be Febreze.
Well, speaking of chambers, like 4.6 billion people are going to thumbs down this video. I'm sorry to say.
Oh damn! India's gonna be happy. I'm done after this. Mass support my channel. I'm screwed.
1.4 billion people.
I love the Indians.
Yeah,
not bad.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you that, you know, these people. Like we're trying to speak up for free speech because, like, ultimately, like I had this thought, like, I'm drawing a blank, but like they don't want to actually participate in human freedom whatsoever. They just
They want to bring over they don't have freedom where they are.
Yeah.
They have, you know, I mean, there was an Indian guy in Britain who was given a talk. He's like, you guys got to understand what you're bringing in with this culture. He's like, they can have nothing to gain or lose by enforcing a law, let's say, you know, and he talked about this. He talked about how, you know, he witnessed a young boy getting raped, sodomized in the back of in a restaurant. He went and reported to the authorities, but the authorities didn't do anything because they were like, well, are you going to pay me? They had nothing to gain or lose. And they were like, well, if I'm not going to benefit, there's no reason for me to do this.
Crazy.
Then there's a story of a woman who got raped by some Indian guy. And then she goes and reports it to the police, the Indian police. The Indian police rape her. Then she goes to the hospital, and then she gets raped by the Indian staff.
Gang raped at all these places.
So you tell me why I'm not allowed to speak out against that and shame you for that is shameful. And you want to bring that bullshit over here, you can go get fucked.
Right.
It's crazy. It's one of my most viewed and most controversial tweets. I tweeted out some girl got gang raped by like 5 Indians, and her husband like didn't do anything. He got like kind of got hit. And like, this guy's a coward. He should have like fought him or died trying.
Yep.
Everyone was so mad at me for saying that. First off, I'd beat the hell out of 5 Indians. But secondly, you should at least, as a man, you should die instead of let that happen to your woman.
That's right. But
That
they
was
didn't. You know why they
controversial.
didn't like it? Because you were bringing attention to shameful activity in their culture. This is what you see. You don't see these people disavowing what their people did. They disavow you for
Well, I had
mentioning
a lot of
something.
Americans mad too, being like, "Why would you risk dying for some girl who wouldn't give a shit about you?" And it's like, if you're
Is that his wife?
No, it was his wife. It's like, yeah, it just shows you how
Everything's
maybe
cucked.
the divide between the sexes has been pushed so heavily, where these guys think, yeah, of course there's some bad, trashy girls out there, but there's a ton of good girls too. If that's your wife, if you're dating a girl, it's your job to protect her. Maybe
right.
maybe these girls don't respect these guys because they want to protect her.
But that's one of those things that also, I remember when I was in my 20s and I didn't think that I was entitled to that or that I should expect that
Basic
from
protection.
No, not at all. Because again, it was like the erasing of the gender roles. And so I remember I was on a date with this guy and we were walking down the street and he was British, which already is kind of faggy. And, we're walking down the street and some kind of bummy looking guy comes over us and he kind of like jerks or something. And he goes, because I was, tough broad or whatever. And he's like, well, I think you would do a better job of protecting us than I would. And I was like,
Jesus.
I remember something in me went cold and I was like, gross. But then my brain, the training goes, well, why should I think that? Why should he have to protect
The
me?
feminist in you. Oh.
Yeah, but I didn't know because this is how it
Programming
goes.
was
But
This is how
your
it goes.
feeling was correct though. Your initial gut.
You have an instinct
It knew.
about something. You have the reality, just like I had the shame and the guilt.
Yeah, 'cause
and then the brainwashing can be so powerful that it can take you out of your own instincts. And it took me years to realize why I had that instinct and that it was correct, and that somebody like that could never be someone I could rely
Yeah, God
on.
speaks to you through intuition. That's
Yeah.
the thing. It's not through thought, because you can
I
be
always trust
programmed
my intuition.
differently. You
Yeah,
have to.
you know,
Yeah,
I
that's
always
how the spirit talks to you. Actually,
You have to continue to uncover that because it's in you and it's there. And it takes a certain degree of bravery and courage because what you're
different.
facing is a world that wants to tell you that the opposite is true. And if you dare speak out against it, they're going to bludgeon you. And this is why I like Christianity, because Christ said this. He said, you will be persecuted for the truth. But that, not all Christians tell the truth. That's true.
Yeah.
But I remember Alexander Solzhenitsyn said when he was in the, internment camps in Bolshevik Russia, he said, yeah, not all the Christians were telling the truth, but the only people telling the truth were Christians.
exactly.
And that converted him.
Exactly. That's what I've been trying to get people to understand, because people always mention how some of the biggest donors to APAC are the
Like
Bible Belt
Charlie
in
Kirks
Texas.
and
Yeah,
guys.
they're the big churches, but at the same time, the only people actually offering the antidote and pointing out the hypocrisy are also the Christians.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
But it becomes like a lightning rod that grounds you, that says, no, this is what your moral guidance system is. You're going to fall away from it. I have. I don't know if there's times that I kind of appease or whatever, and then I have to come back and go, no, what's the truth? Come back, tell the truth. You're going to be persecuted for it, but what's the alternative?
It's easy to lie because it's comfortable and it'll make you more money.
And you'll get paid.
But ultimately, I'm happier when I tell the truth.
And you have your own self-esteem. And at the end of the day, this is the other part too, right? Like, I'm not like super famous, but it's enough of a bit of fame and success. And then and I can see now that I've kind of gotten that. I go, so you get this, and then what? Great. I'm going to get more money, and then what am I going to do with that? And then
We're all gonna die.
I'm going to get more fame, and what am I going to do with that? And I'm like, it's nice to be rewarded for integrity and the work, but don't lose sight of the goal and what you're really doing this for.
Right.
And when you can do that, you realize this stuff is to take care of your life here, which we all have to do.
Exactly.
But we really should be focusing, and I'm at fault for this too, more on our spiritual purpose, the cultivation of our character and our soul, and the way we help other people.
Yeah. I mean, the friendships, people close to you, that's so much more. I mean, of course, obviously you need to make money to survive, and that's why I try not to go too hard on people, because I know a lot of people will get fired for speaking up, and I'm in a situation where I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable, and I work for myself, so I don't have anyone that could fire me.
Yeah.
But you could easily be, way more rich, right?
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And, there is something to see, like Dan Bilzerian talked about, right? He had all of this stuff, and then he was like, okay, now what?
Exactly.
And there's people who never get to that level, and they still act like what they have is so much more, and you're like, yeah, you haven't really kind of seen through the facade yet.
Yeah, Dan lost maybe $100 million speaking up, but he doesn't really care. He's like, well, my friends are my same friends anyways. I mean, hang out with the same people. He doesn't care if it's like, he knows a lot of famous people, but a lot of his best friends aren't famous at all, just like
and the real ones will acknowledge you, which is really what matters.
And you're going to have a lot of fake friendships when you are not telling the truth.
Correct.
And those things, let me just tell you, I mean, those are liabilities. Those people will turn on you. It's happened to me. Those people will turn you in. They're all just crabs in a barrel. They don't want anybody rising, and as soon as you start, they want to pull you down.
Yeah. The haters are weird. The people that act like they're your friends, but they see you start getting successful, and they're trying to like chop you down, talk crap behind your back. It's really strange.
And they veil it.
Phenomena too.
They veil it in this kind of. I'm just concerned, and I'd like to see. And I'm like, I don't need you to see shit. You're not my mother. You're not my father.
They want to control you, actually.
Yeah.
It's a weird coping mechanism, and it's funny because all of us here, it's like we care about integrity over some fiscal security. You know, as long as we can be comfortable, that's what matters to us. Because what's the point of having money if you can't be yourself?
What is it?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
this goes. There's a couple of things.
The Bible calls it the straight and narrow path for a reason. Like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have to eventually choose integrity over being comfortable from this system. So.
And the other part too is like, why would I be a stand-up comedian if I have to censor myself?
Yeah, you might as well have just gotten any job.
I think
I could make so much more. I mean, listen,
any job, honestly,
I'm pretty intelligent. I could work a lot of different jobs, work my way to the top, and be making easy. People will think this is crazy. I could easily be making a couple $1 million a year with some of the opportunities that I've turned down.
I think comedy is such an important art form, though, because it is supposed to tell the truth. That's where you're pushing the boundaries, and that's why it's terrible that very few comedians are doing that.
Yeah. Well, they want fame. They want riches. They want to be admired. They don't listen. It's hard. Like I'm telling you, when I was in Austin, I couldn't go out because I started having people say things like I would spit in her face if I saw her. Oh, yeah.
Do they ever say anything in person?
No.
People always say bad things about me online. I know I'm a fighter, so it's different, but no one ever. The same people that talk crap will probably come get a picture with you if they see you.
But I am a woman.
So it does make it a lot scarier.
And it does make it like, and there's, if there's a 6'2" black dude this is who it was, threatening this kind of physical intimidation. First of all, you're a fucking coward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man threatening a woman's a
and then I don't have that. There is something different, and I understand this. I'm more vulnerable than you guys are. I don't have that same physical capability. I'm not under any illusions that I could fight a man.
Of course, yeah.
That's why I stay strapped.
But guys like us protect girls.
But they should. That's why it's crazy. It's controversial.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys don't text for women anymore. That's what's insane.
Yeah, but also they're still different. Like I'm not used to relying on anyone to do anything for me. So it's not me. It's different than when you have your own power. What if somebody's not near you? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I'm very aware of that, and I know that those are the risks that I'm taking. But I don't know. I almost can't. It's almost like, despite every attempt to control myself, I can't.
Yeah, I can't either. I'm like, I'm going to stop speaking the truth, and I just can't do it.
Yeah, you can't do it, man, and that's not a problem. And that was one of my first. I didn't start comedy until 2019, pretty late in my life. And I had resisted it for a long time. It's like that hero's journey where you get the call and then you refuse it. I refused it for at least 6 years of people telling me, like, you're really funny. And I was like, you're retarded. And they were like, you do stand up. You're so funny. And then I finally, got the push. Somebody I was with, great person, was like, let's go. I'm taking you to a mic. That's it. You got to do it.
Was that scary the first time you did it?
For sure, it has to be, right?
Listen, I'm a little bit of an attention whore, and I was used to being, public and speaking publicly. I'd done a kind of job like that. I liked entertaining people. I was an actor. It was for sure. I was nervous. You don't know if it's the first time. I mean, I crushed the first time, bombed the second time.
Oh yeah,
bomb.
Yeah, it's got to be
pretty terrible. And thankfully, I don't have a lot of those in my repertoire. But as soon as I did it, I was like, oh, this is what everybody's talking about. And when I started, it was peak woke culture. I was in New York City. It's 2019. The trans agenda's flaring.
That was bad. I was in New York. That was bad.
Yeah. I
really?
was.
Oh wow.
I was surrounded by these liberal women who were like, well, we're just, we're gonna, they, them is now here, and this, and we have to honor their, and I had accepted this, and I still remember, like, I had accepted it in this way where I was just like, I'm just not going to think about it, exactly what you're talking about. Okay, like, fine, I'm just not going to, this is not my problem, it's not my battle, I don't want to go into this. And I just remember this one moment I just couldn't take it anymore. It had nothing to do with anything. I was just walking in a field, and suddenly I just started screaming, they're not women! That's a man! I'm done pretending. I'm so sick. And it was like everything had been held down, and suddenly the dam burst, and I couldn't take it anymore.
I can't believe more people don't do that, because when I see this and everyone's like want to win a sporting competition and people are like applauding in silence, like, how is everyone not just screaming? That's a fucking man.
Yeah.
But when I do see these, like, when they're getting their medals and all this, whatever the sport is, I have looked at the faces. And they're clapping like seals, but
they still
again,
clap.
it's forced. Yeah, but it's almost like in your heart, but they're so programmed.
That's the point, though.
That's
why don't they yell
that's,
like the man?
That's cowardly. That's cowardly, and that's why you could sit there and blame a group, or you can blame individuals who are doing this, but you've got to take accountability yourself. You have allowed this world.
You can blame the government, you can blame your parents, you can blame the system, but ultimately take accountability and blame the Jews. that's basically what you're saying, right?
And 5% yourself.
Yeah. Well, we've allowed them to dictate that culture out of fear of being criticized as an anti-Semite.
Oh, I don't want to be called anti-Semitic.
Out of fear of being called a homophobe. We have believed this bullshit narrative that homosexuality is just heterosexuality. It's just like heterosexuality. They fall in love. That's not what it is.
They're doing meth and gangbangs.
Yeah.
I lived in San Francisco for a few years. It's disgusting.
Something's gone wrong. It's not the same thing. But we have allowed it out of fear, and we've convinced ourselves, and then we've internalized this shame that they want to put on us for telling the truth and saying, like, yeah, okay, you want to do what you want to do. Fine. Okay, that's your business, but I don't need this to be the mainstream culture. Somebody came out of the closet and we're celebrating that. I'm like, go back in the closet. Let's celebrate that.
Yeah. Oh, please.
Yeah, no, I think it should be more in the closet. It shouldn't be celebrated. It shouldn't be prayed. It shouldn't be having sex. If you're gay, I just don't want to know about it.
Why? Okay, so if I come out as straight, why I'm not celebrated?
Yeah, you don't need.
Yeah, and honestly, that's what I was gonna say, because like I have the same feeling. Because look, like in actual life, when I'm not on X, I'm pretty chill. So if I always say I'm not a homophobe, I'm a homo bored. Like, I don't give a fuck. But they need you to know. They need to tell you all this shit.
Yeah.
And it's almost like,
trust me, we know. You don't have to tell us.
It's like they, and like, in New York City, you'll always see these gay couples on the train, and they're standing, holding hands, all indignant, like I give a fuck.
Indignant, exactly.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm getting at, where I'm like,
we know what you guys, we know your ass banging that you guys are doing.
I think as a man, you get a repulsion when you see this. So they shouldn't do it in public. You get like this natural, like, gross.
I get a repulsion. I'm a woman.
Well, everyone does.
It is gross.
Two ladies chomping at the bit at each other. I'm sorry.
It's pretty gross.
It's gross, man. I don't. Fine. You know what? I'm not gonna tell you how to live your life.
And do you know why it's gross? We can like articulate this. Let's excavate this a little bit. And again, I gotta chill with the preachy stuff, with the Bible stuff. Okay, but real quick, like, this is worth also saying really quickly. One of the first lessons in Genesis, it's all about if you separate from the garden, then things look pretty bad because you're in paradise. And it sort of implies that, the reason why you want to trust your gut is the more natural it is, probably the healthier and happier you'll be. That's kind of what it implies. It's a very profound lesson. Yeah. That's the first book in the Bible, Genesis. It's telling us that. And homosexuality simply is not natural. It's a sin. And that's why we feel this gut reaction. And that's what it boils down to.
A sin means a missing the mark of the orientation that you're supposed to be at. People have all this like moral prescription on the word sin, and it just means you fall. And by the way, homosexuals are not the only ones who are falling away from the mark of our sexuality. I mean, I shouldn't engage in anything until I'm married. That's the truth. You know what I mean?
We all fell for a side.
Yes, hookup culture has been so pushed and normalized, especially if you're living in a city. It's so easy to fall.
I'm not a purity hammering guy. I'm just saying there's a lesson there.
Listen, this was a moment for me where I kind of like realized just how far we'd fallen. Like, my mom's one generation away right? And I remember one time she was a nurse in college, and she was like, "You are not going to believe what these girls are doing. They are doing crazy things."
Sounds like an Albanian.
We've all lived in New York too. It's just insane. Like,
But here's the thing. So I asked my mom, because I wanted to know, like, I know crazy things that women do. I go, "Mom, what are you talking about?" She's like, "You'll have like a beautiful girl, and she will go and have sex with a random man." And I was like, okay. And then my mom was like, "That's so disgusting. How can you do that?"
She's right.
But she's right. And then I didn't realize, like, I was like, holy cow. Like, just one generation ago, the norm was to realize, like, yeah, you're not my husband. We're not married. Pfft, you're not coming in here.
What a time to be.
in the big cities, it's become like just totally normalized. But if you
Can you imagine
it's
what?
never been like that in history. We just go home with some random dude.
It's insane.
And you know what? Like, a part of me used to blame baby boomers, like, fuck you, and I still see how they're very complicit. But at the same time, it's almost like they were naive about it, and they actually were almost in like a sweet way, but ignorant.
Yeah.
They just let their kids go into the cities and all this. And there's no malice. They were just like blind in ignorance. And also, a big point,
Self-involved.
well, they also didn't have the internet.
And also,
That's a big point,
also you
too.
got to realize they were raised with TV, which is literal programming.
Yeah, that's
tons
true.
of
Yeah,
brainwashing.
yeah.
That's
So
why
they just sort of let us adventurously go out and make ourselves degenerate.
if you want to convince a boomer of anything, put it on the TV, sit them down, put edit it to say CNN. You know what I mean?
CNN or Fox, either one.
Yeah, have Rachel Maddow say it, and they'll be convinced. But that to me is just like, I didn't grow up with that mentality because of the culture I was in, and suddenly like to recognize, wait a second, actually, because I thought, oh, they were so backwards and that's so dumb or whatever. Then I realized, no, we're backwards.
Yeah, it's proper.
Actually, that's the natural orientation. Actually, that's the way we've been for thousands of years. Actually, that is a kind of proper moral system. And you cry for what you lost. It is a loss. It's a tremendous loss to the culture. These young children, unfortunately, have lost this system that protected them from this kind of propagandizing that is actually quite damaging to them. Mm-hmm. And now, you have men who don't want to show. They're the ones who want you working and having abortions. It's not for you.
Yeah, I know the men are responsible for the abortion thing too. People don't talk about that. They always blame the women, which it is. It's both though. But men are often the ones pushing girls to get an abortion.
They're the ones who want to, sleep with you and run and have no accountability or responsibility. And if it was a different system, I mean, there was always these people doing this stuff, right? But it wasn't the predominant culture. But if there was a different system where the majority of girls were saying no, they would be thinking about it a little harder. Like, okay, do I really want this woman? By the way, as a woman too, when you don't have that severity, consequence of I'll have to bear this person's child, can they provide? Is this the kind of person I want to have a child with? Then your standard of who you sleep with is just so low, and it's completely contrary to what your nature would guide you toward.
Yeah, and that's why girls historically are so selective, because you'd have to have a child with this man. So you guys are meant to be extremely selective.
I literally, if I had this awareness and this mentality about picking mates, the only person that I would ever have been with is my current fiance.
Well,
I wouldn't even
a blessing now.
I wouldn't even have married my ex-husband.
Yeah.
I would have been like, oh, I'm not going to have your big-headed child.
I hate to be all Confucian here, but you did remind me of there's a saying in Korea that you should select your partner like your future child has a deciding vote.
Oh, that's a great, yeah.
And I think it's incredibly profound because most people, they don't understand how scarce reliability is, and they're just gallivanting around. And that's also the gracious thing about this world, where there's grace and forgiveness. And, you can come back home.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing.
That's true. You can come back home.
Yeah, you can.
And there is, listen, there is like forgiveness in Christianity. Yeah. But people don't understand that. They're like, oh, so you can do all this stuff and then just say you're sorry.
That's not
like,
what I'm saying.
I know that's not what you're saying. But true repentance isn't just about, oh, I'm sorry. It's like you bear the weight of what you've done, and right. You turn and every day, like, listen, I still have flashbacks. I'm like, oh God, I hate that I have this memory. This is something I have to live with now. And you understand, it's not like, oh, it's a free card to sit. I wish I'd never done any of that.
But that also evaporates eventually, I'm telling you.
There is still a cost that you pay.
It takes time.
There's 15 years of my life
right.
that you're not going to get that. You can repent, but there's consequences.
I think getting abortions also hurt girls a lot. No one really talks about it, but if you actually like talk to girls and like open
Oh,
up
I
and hear
know.
them, you'll hear like how much it hurts them.
I know. And
No one
then
ever talks about that.
And they lie to themselves afterward. I knew a girl who got abortion at 5.5 months. That's a full child. She had to have that thing ripped from her. And she's a lesbian now. So
So no, it showed it scarred.
Yeah,
A lot
make
of times
yourself-
you won't want to admit it, but like if you get someone to open up honest conversations, a lot of times they'll admit that it's something that hurt them bad.
and she would
is
celebrate her aborted child's birthday every year. And
sick.
Really?
and she'd be like, I know he's in and I'm like,
That's just sick.
do you understand that you did this?
Yeah, a lot of women need help. I mean, it's just so sad because I mean, I've always believed that all of this is happening because men are no longer behaving as benevolent fathers. Like even a single man who's doesn't have children, you can still embody this fatherly love spirit.
Sure.
And this is sort of how I like try to, as an active principle, navigate the world. And it's just so sad because this is sort of the norm. Men were passed this torch. Like, look, when you're born as a male, the woman and children go this way, and we go this way because those Mongol son of a bitches. That's the deal.
Yeah.
And we've sort of lost that. And because now men are pretty much trying to just get, quick sexual satisfaction, they're willing to bend their morality, even if it really contaminates and hurts these women. That's basically what we're seeing.
And they're shrinking from what they could be. That's what they don't understand. They think they're like benefiting by, racking up these bodies. And
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like,
not.
you're not discovering anything about who you are, your strength, your integrity. When a man shows up and provides for a woman, he gets a sense
Yeah,
of
women make men better. Because it forces you to ante up.
But you
have
also
to take care of a family now.
There's a feeling of fulfilling your purpose when you're able to do that. You feel like, oh, I got that. It's a stress for sure. It's like when I make a meal for when I love when my man asks me to cook him something because I feel like I can do that for you. You know what I mean?
It's so much more wording than just like random hookups. But it's like anything. It's like an addiction. It's like same thing with like a drug. It's like if you do a line of coke, the first one will feel good. You keep doing it, you start feeling terrible. Or if like you do an Oxycontin, you feel great one day. Every day, then you stop feeling it. By like 5 or 6 days, you have to take it to feel normal. Then you're addicted and you get nothing positive out of it.
Yeah, that's true. It's like a
anything.
drug.
Yeah. So the first time it's like a rush, like oh wow, it's amazing, and then the more you do it, just the less and less.
Yeah, I wish I was able to say this earlier, but it's just that the base people have to have kids and take care of them.
Yeah.
I wish I could say this
Thankfully,
earlier.
I had kids young and stuff.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
And of course, a girl pregnant, and it wasn't trying to have a kid, but I had to think like that's a baby inside. It wasn't like, oh, that's a clump of
Yeah,
cells.
it's
And it was
amazing.
like,
That is a baby.
it wasn't one of my kids with. I'm so thankful that I had my child. With this,
That's
like,
great. Yeah.
and so many people are just like, oh, let's just kill it.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. They're
They're a death cult. That's just the reality.
But
We
you-
have all these words to describe them. No, they're anti-human.
Yeah, no, they are anti-human,
Yeah.
and people don't understand the level of propaganda and brainwash. You have to think about this. Women, for thousands of years, have died to protect their children. Now, of course, there were the Casey Anthonys always. I mean, you talked about Medea. Medea was an ancient Greek tragedy of a woman she was a princess. Her husband left her for another younger princess, and so what she did was she killed her 3 kids that were his and herself. That was her revenge. I mean, that's sick, right?
Yeah.
But now we have that, and everybody knew that play was a morality play. Now you have these women doing it so they can have a job in middle level marketing, and you got to go, wait a second, how did we get here? How can you literally, be able to propagandize someone to go against these thousands of years of evolutionary biology in the exact inverse?
Yeah, and act like it's totally normal too.
And act like you're the bad guy for.
Yeah, I would die without thinking twice for my kids. This is huge. That's
the
your
norm.
role
Yeah,
as a
women have
father.
been trained to think like I would rather organize spreadsheets.
They don't.
Have children that say mommy's home and loves him. It's like
brainwashing campaign.
yeah,
But-
it's
but-
crazy.
But
It's
that's
crazy,
not the
yeah.
way it's presented, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
presented like
You're an independent boss woman.
you can have this freedom or this will impair your life. And they don't show them the end road.
And also, I gotta say, look, even if they're young women, a lot of them are stupid, but I think also a lot of it is a coping mechanism because a lot of women, rightfully so, you look at how bleak it is in the world today to find a credible man and an honorable man. It's almost like a defense mechanism because they need to be able to have resources. So what's going to happen if I can't find a good man? I can almost sympathize with that position. If I
that's
imagine
real.
if I imagine if I had a daughter, I can understand that perspective. So I think it's just that the psychological operation is in both men and women. Like it's just there's a weakness of men and there's a delusion of women happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
things are always complicated. You know, it's never black and white.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
always-
Yeah. It's not just one thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would, for me, I've been financially independent basically since I was 22. And it was necessary for me. I realized I worked jobs since I was 14, and I always tried to make money. And I went to a college that gave me almost a full scholarship because I needed that. I knew for a reason, I won't get into it, that I needed that level of independence because otherwise, this was going to be held over me and I was not going to be free. Mm-hmm. And I could have not done that. And I would have been a real nice gilded road. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even a thought for me. I was like, no, I'm suffocating. And there is a freedom with that is important. That's why I think first wave feminism is important.
Yeah.
You need to be able to, we're adults, we don't need to be infantilized. The 50s was a time of infantilizing women. Like my grandmother is a trad housewife, whatever. She is a badass bitch, dude. She, her husband died 10 years into their marriage. And, they try to come and take his land and the pension that she was getting from him. And she was like, over my dead body. And this is in Albania, that the culture's like the 1860s. And, I kind of picture her with a shotgun out there, like, come and take it. She's like, this is due to me. This is to feed his children. I'm not, because they were like, well, give us the kids. The father's family's like, give us the kids and you can go get married again. She's 29, She was a gorgeous woman. She was like, I will die with my children. So that's not a shrinking violet. And yeah, she was taken care of, but she was fierce. Yeah. So this idea that they'll be like, oh, I'm just going to subvert to you. It's just like, it's such a lie.
Yeah, it's like Jake said, it's not a one-dimensional black and white thing.
No, you understand why girls want freedom too. So it is complicated. Especially it's.
Well, it's important that we, we're grown adults. It's important that we, have the ability to be self-sustaining.
And even these crazy harpies, they know what they're doing as women. They're adults.
Yeah, they do. And if you do, if you get to a point where you guys get to a situation where, you want to have the kids, you want to raise them, that's an adult conversation that you have. And there's a clear exchange there. There isn't, I'm being taken care of because I'm infantilized like a child. It's like, hey, I'm going to dedicate, these resources that I have are way more valuable here. And he's like, okay, cool. I'll do all this.
Yeah, no, so it's two ways. The man needs to know how to lead. So a lot of people are like...
That's 100% correct.
That's right.
I don't want to lead.
Yeah, these guys want to blame the girls for everything, but they're not leading. Like, these girls are so trashy.
Exactly.
Like,
that's pretty much
pill.
the nutshell of it. Yeah.
And they have some real arguments, too, but they go too far.
Well, they're looking at, like, the OnlyFans chicks, and these chicks who are online. I'm like...
Which is like, what, like 0.2%
It's not the normal girl.
Most of these chicks don't make anything.
They don't talk to women, that's why. Yeah. They don't talk to women.
That's true. These are the guys that are out probably online all day, not talking to real people, realizing, a lot of girls, or they just don't deserve respect. Maybe
they're watching Manosphere videos on YouTube all day.
They're only
I love Byron, but,
no. I'm not talking about him. Yeah.
But no, sometimes it goes too hard.
Yeah.
Their only contact with women is the women online, the women who are shamed online. Like their only contact with, like, let's say black people are the videos of black people acting retarded, the same way, like the only contact with black people is of black people online is their videos of white people saying racist shit. And I'm like, if you go out and you actually interact with these people, you'll realize there's individuals, you know what I mean? And like, if your only contact is with these OnlyFans girls, of course they're all going to look like that.
Yeah, I did 2 of those panels, I think, for like Meyer, and they were just awful. They bring in the worst, dumbest girls. And you're just like, oh my God, how are you talking to these people? So if you're sitting there watching those all the time, you're gonna be like, women are awful.
Well, that's why I went, I mean, you guys know, like, I think it was like several months ago, I went on the Whatever podcast because it was just making me sick.
That guy's a weird.
It was making me sick what was happening. I was like, this is retarded. And so I was straight up. I was like, I think you guys are, portraying. I wasn't lying about who I was. He still brought me in.
Yeah.
And I let them all have it. And I was very nice about it too. It wasn't like bitchy or whatever.
That show's setup is so strange though. It's such a weird.
But it's meant to get them to say stupid things and degrade them and put them down. And
then the moment you mention
the Israel-Palestine conflict.
Oh, that's right. I did see that clip on you.
And all I was talking about were the three intelligence agencies of the CIA, Mossad, and UK's MI6. Yep. And I said they're in an alliance together.
As soon as you said Mossad, he's like, no.
Yeah.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
That's telling about him, right?
I'm like, so you had no problem me mentioning the CIA. You had no problem me mentioning MI6. Suddenly I say this, and I'm like, Why? They are working together. That's not. It's the same way that I felt like I was like, I don't understand why this is a controversy. Like, why is it a controversy for me to say that Ukraine is a money laundering scheme where they take some of the money, where Zelensky takes some of the money and feeds his oligarchs, and then kicks back a bunch to our politicians that are voting for it.
Total money laundering.
Yeah, dude, they kept hitting me up trying to get me on the whatever, but as soon as I started talking about Israel, I haven't heard from them since.
Well, there you go.
And that says more about them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't like going to those shows anyways. I'm
Yeah,
not trying to go on there and make like college girls feel dumb. Like, how pathetic is that to like go on there and argue with college girls?
But they also, what they end up doing is creating this false illusion that this is the main narrative of women. This is how women normally function. And, you know, then the girls, you know, what they do is they create manufactured consent. Girls will watch this, go, oh, I guess this is how everybody's doing it. I guess this is how everybody thinks. And look at these asshole guys. Oh, okay, so this is, you know what I mean? Again, you know, we needed guidance systems. We used to have heroes that embodied the values that we wanted our society to embody. And now we have porn stars, pornographers, people who just care about making money no matter what, no moral guidance system. And we hold them up because we go, you know, like Iggy Azalea, who came out shaking her ass or whatever. And I heard people who be like, I was like, this is gross. And they're like, she's a millionaire. I'm like, so what?
Yeah, right. It's weird. They're trying to normalize porn stars to make them famous. And there was it Adam 22 having another dude sleep with his wife? It's just what kind of
disgusting.
Disgusting.
Oh, they're like, oh, but you know, they're killing the game. What game?
Yeah, right.
What game
The
are we
wife's getting
playing?
Fucked by other dudes.
What do you have then? What do you have? What all that money in the world, and you don't even own yourself, and you don't. There's no sacredness in your relationship.
Yeah, nothing. And this is what I'm saying. There's no more reverence. There's no more reverence.
Yeah.
And it just
nothing is sacred anymore.
Nothing is sacred. And you know, like I'm as an artist, like, you know, obviously as a painter, my whole thing is trying to bring beauty. But I would just say, just because you're tapped into the creative process as well, this is why you're even mentioning this subject. You don't see anybody feeling that solemn feeling of appreciating something above anymore. It's just
right,
gone.
because again, we are in a merchant class value system. They don't value beauty. That's why all our buildings look like shit. It's meant to demoralize you. You walk around and you got these ugly buildings. There's no tuning into the human spirit. We've
lost our class.
You're made to feel like, yeah, you don't get that because the only thing that matters is what's the bottom line of how much it costs
and you
us
notice
to build
that
this.
you notice all the people manufacturing these useful idiot comedians, and I say class specifically because class, historically, when we looked at class, we were talking about people who had high values. Now it's associated with money. That's why when you mention the porn stars, yeah, but they're killing it.
Yeah,
all this stupid different ways of repacking it. But ultimately, when I say we've lost our class, I'm not saying what they do, which is pretentiousness. We've actually lowered our standards.
Yeah.
When I say class, I'm talking about, when I say high class, I mean high standards.
Yeah, a value system.
And all our aesthetics are trash. The buildings, like we talked about,
we yesterday too. Like, you mentioned that because, like, yeah, you walk around Europe, it's beautiful. Some of these old buildings, it used to be so beautiful. Now it's just ugly.
Well, all you have to do is go look at any Eastern European country that suffered under communism. You know, you'll see these beautiful old architectural buildings right next to these Soviet style and that because nothing captured the spirit.
Intentionally made ugly, I think.
That was the spirit of Bolshevikism, right?
You know, modern art was created by the CIA.
Oh, I know.
They pushed crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, all the, like, I'll be an art nerd a little bit, but like if you look at art historically, every time, like, values, like basically, especially Christianity, but the moral structure was basically moved from the society. Everything aesthetic, all the artists represented it in this very gray, soul-crushed state. Everything changed in that manner because the aesthetics tell you everything about the ideology. It really does. You know, that's why if you see one of your haters, she's a fucking sphere, and she's lower than a mid and blue hair, that's because that's who she is.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Right? And that's why aesthetics tell you everything. And that's why everything is so ugly today. And that's why also the comedy sucks today.
Yeah.
Right?
But they hate beauty. They will take down people who are beautiful. They will take down things that are beautiful. They will call it Nazism. I mean, there was like a family of like, oh, was it? I forgot, one of the people running for office. he's blonde, his wife's blonde. He had like 4 blonde children. They were like, this is literal Nazi propaganda.
They're too good looking. I'm sorry.
It was literally Nazi propaganda. I
And I think they were
what
just-
about it is
And
Nazi
it was just
propaganda.
a family photo.
It was just a
It
family
was just
photo.
something like this, like, hi.
But that's revealing because
It's so crazy.
because they're right. They are telling the truth. They are made to see that as Nazi propaganda, therefore evil, therefore to be resisted, because the white man is evil. Everything's inverted. Everything's inverted.
Yeah, everything's inverted.
So that's why they're all so ugly and fat looking, and they promote each other.
Yeah, they push the obesity, the ugliness,
They push that and they want you to see that as beauty. I'm like, you can call it that all day. You yourself know you're not beautiful.
exactly. Everyone knows.
You yourself, you can get, this is what they don't get. This is the same thing with the trans thing. It's like they think that they know what the reality is, and they're so angry at the reality. They're so angry at the natural system, and they can't do anything about that. So they go ahead and project that anger onto the people who are calling out the reality.
Yeah.
And they think if we can just get you to change what you say, we can change reality. The reality is not the problem. The problem is that you're saying it. So if we get you to change it, then we can actually change the reality. It could be different. And I say to them, never going to happen. Even if you got every person in the world to be like Lizzo's beautiful, or to be like, Caitlyn Jenner's a woman, you're still going to know the truth.
Yeah.
You will know the
We
truth.
want you to accept any lie. That's why the trans thing was a big deal. Because if you'd accept that, you'll accept anything.
That's
if you'll
correct.
Switch, you can switch between a man and a woman. You'll believe anything.
That's correct.
And I must say, because we have someone like Leonarda here, it's very important to understand that you need a certain amount of individuals who are willing to point at the elephant in the room and say literally anything. Just to maintain free speech itself, you need specific individuals. Like, let me just say, even if you don't like what she says or what these individuals say, just understand sociologically the fact that they exist protects your free speech. That's what people don't understand. That's why you need people who are willing to say anything. That's why sometimes I just tweet crazy things just to say
I like
it.
to push the boundaries. Which
Exactly.
Is great, though. Like a year ago, I was one of the furthest ones. Now there's guys going way past me and get like Bryce Mitchell hopping on there.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah, but that's
podcast.
That's what I'm saying. We should acknowledge that we need people who covet free speech to that point.
We need people to push it to the limits. Exactly.
Yes.
You need to push the Overton window back to the
Yeah.
truth. To the truth.
No, things need to be pushed sometimes.
That's right.
That's why I started pushing.
Also, nothing about our position is actually radical. This is the political position, the ideology that has been the standard for 99.9% of human history. You could say a man can only be a man, only women can get pregnant, gayness is an aberration, having kids is the ultimate goal in life. This is beautiful. This is ugly. 99.9% of human history, this was the standard. It is now alt-right and extremist because we are in the alt-left and extremist position, that this position now becomes radicalized. And it's only propaganda to get you to reject it automatically instead of looking into it.
It is crazy how they push that on us. Like, obviously, all of history through pretty much all societies has been viewed different, and they've like conned people. There's a pushback happening now, though. You can feel people are finally
There's the
starting
white
to push
pill.
back. Like when I first started speaking on the trans thing, it was like actually controversial.
Yeah.
Now everyone's saying that.
Yeah.
Death threats originally. People would like privately tell me they agreed, but not within when we were groups because I live in liberal cities. Like it's changed a lot.
This is shaping up so interestingly, though, because you're right. Like, all this is unfolding, and you almost feel this like antithetical culture shaping up where it's almost like everything mainstream is bullshit. And while this circus is going on, the people waking up is growing, and it's creating this weird dissonance now.
Because people like us have
You know?
voices now. We can just go on there and, I'm a fighter and go on there and tweet random shit, or a comedian or an artist, and people can see that we're authentic. I'm still learning. We're open-minded to learn, but we're being authentic. And you see these other guys, these Charlie Kirks, Ben Shapiro's.
You can
Total
tell,
posers.
You can sniff,
Total
you can
posers.
sniff in authenticity. You can even sniff it on our side when people come in and they just want to say something to get this attention. You sniff it,
There's definitely grifters and
There's grifters. They just say the most striking thing just for the sake of it. Yeah.
And this is, I think, because we are in we're shifting into a post-Marxist culture. I mean, we were in a Marxist culture. People are like, oh, it's not communism. I'm like, it's just a different form.
same shit.
But we are in a post-Marxist culture, and always in a post-Marxist culture, the main currency becomes authenticity and truth. Because that's what you lost. And that is the way you start to orient and navigate yourself.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, let's switch real quick. I wanted to ask a few things. How'd you end up working with Alex Jones?
So, Harrison Smith.
Oh, yeah, Harrison. He's
had me on his show. A couple times, and the second time was when the Indians had removed my account, and I went on this tirade. And Alex just happened to be in the studio, and he heard me, and he was like, "She's great, bring her in. I want her on the show." Nice. And it was very nice of him to do that because I really needed help. I didn't have anything else, you know. And so, you know, he had his producer message me, and then I came in the following week, and I did it. And he was like, "You're really great at this, and we'd love to have you back." And, you know, it was after that I actually got it was between him and Stu Peters who helped me get my account back.
Do.
You know, he helped me with that. And then they had me host it one day when he was not there. And then I was back again for something else, and he wanted to interview me.
Hosted his whole show one day?
Yeah, for an hour. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Got to feel like you're Alex Jones.
Yeah. And I know people...
It's the Chi-Coms.
It is the Chi-Coms, right? Yeah.
I know that people have an issue with him because they don't think he's saying some of the things that they want him to be saying. And that's okay. You know, we don't have to agree with everything. I know people like to say he's a shill or whatever, he's controlled op. I don't think so. I think that, you know, after what happened with Sandy Hook, I mean, they made an example of him, and he went hard for things that were, I mean, listen, whatever you want to believe about Sandy Hook, there is something quite suspicious that after that, all of a sudden, I mean, people don't realize how drastically the gun laws changed in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut directly after that. And that was a plan from Obama for sure. So if it was a real tragedy, oh boy, did they make use of it. And there's something about it. If you really start looking into it, you go, this is very suspicious, very suspicious. So, you know, I think that, you know, you can get beat. You can get beat. You know, he was out on a ledge. And I do think they beat him.
Yeah,
beat him down.
I
think they beat him down.
And
he
made a deal or something, because I'm banned from InfoWars. I can't go on there. But I think he made some kind of deal or something where they give money and he doesn't mention a certain group. It's a little sad. I have a lot of respect for the guy, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, you know.
You got to feed your family, too.
Look, I'm with you guys, you know, like where I'm with you, where I'm like, I want people to take the sharpest stands and go that way. But I can't judge people. I don't know what their deals are. I don't know what their predicaments are. I don't know what mouths they have to feed. I don't know what their consciousness is guiding them to, you know, and so it's real easy to shout it out from here. You know, it's a lot of reasons I don't go in on Rogan, where I think he should say some things and he doesn't say other things. You know, I'm like, dude, this guy is trying to create a space for free speech. I mean, it did move the needle. It moved the needle in the comedy world. Say whatever you want to say.
He was over the mark.
Yeah, both Rogan and Alex Jones have done a lot. You know, I've attacked Alex Jones, but I still have respect for him.
Of course.
Rogan's been a friend of mine for years. There's, you know, I wish he'd go a little harder on certain things, but I think he has an interesting guest on soon. We'll see how that goes. So hopefully he starts pushing things a little more. Yeah,
and here's the other thing too. Like, you know, Alex knows my stance. He had me on.
Yeah, so
he knows.
Well, the people
he knew.
hired
What's his name? Elijah Schaffer. He had him on, so you know, he's given a voice to.
Yeah,
it's the same way that, you know, I don't agree with everything Elon Musk did, but he's opened up his platform to people like Nick Fuentes.
No,
he wasn't able to talk anywhere else, you know. So take your wins, you know. Don't hold people to an impossible standard. Take your wins and keep pushing. Doesn't mean you have to set your limits to the same target. Keep pushing it.
Yeah, I mean, I was angry at Alex because he was a guy I've known and respected for a while, but I understood.
I understood why you were angry.
I still have love for him, of course.
I totally understood why you were angry. You felt betrayed. You felt like, you know, you did this
I fought
fight
so hard to try to
get
him back on.
And there was a fight. There was a feeling of like, hey, you know, what about me? You know, you've left me out in the cold.
He talks about the Jews too much. Take his check mark away.
You know, and
That's crazy.
I get that, and I'm not going to fault you for that either.
Yeah. But it's one of those things. Yeah, no, I was upset. Oh, I fight for this guy, and I know this guy pretends like he doesn't know me. We weren't like close, but he definitely knows me. We've hung out on a few occasions. You're like, this guy just doesn't. But who knows what they have on him or what the deal is? It's something.
And you know, sometimes you got to play the game a little bit in a different way, and people don't get it.
Well, guys like Tucker, you know, he's starting to come in. He's known for a while. Tucker's been very well. He knows what's going on, but now he's starting to realize it's time to push. So.
Yeah, well, because there have been the fighters, the low-level fighters like us. You know, and I'm late to, you know, you've been doing it longer, but pushing that and creating, like, we're pulling the rubber band,
right?
So that we're over here. You know, you got Bryce Mitchell out there being like, Hitler was a good guy, and
it's great when he says that because it moves it further. So
well, now if you say something a little less, like, hey, you know, the Germans were trying to keep communism out of their country, that's less controversial, and we can actually start having that dialogue. Whereas before it was just like, I don't know, all of a sudden they were just like, let's just commit a racial genocide.
Yeah, if somebody says 10, then 6 doesn't sound that bad. But that's a good point though, because yes, there might be some like dissonance and friction amongst different characters, but we have people like Tucker, like you said, and Candace, who are starting to become more comfortable talking about more salient points. Hard. Yes, and what's going to happen then is these people will start having that conversation because it's more normalized now.
I mean, Tucker and Candace are massive names. Having them
and you had Martyr made that podcast, and he's very historical. He's very neutral, and he got a lot of respect. Rogan mentioned him on his podcast. Like, that's not a little thing.
Yeah, I think Rogan might start pushing now, too. The guys like Tucker are doing it. He's going to start feeling a little pressure, probably.
Well, you also got to look at the shift. I mean, Rogan, was like pushing the psychedelic stuff and, anti-religion. And recently he's had some Christian apologetics on.
People, I've been seeing that.
Mel Gibson, who's arguing about Christ and all this stuff. And you're like, yeah, that's different. You know what I mean? That's different.
Things I've known Rogan for a long time. I know he's a good guy. I know his heart's in the right place. I don't know why he's not speaking up more, but I know he's not a bad person. So
yeah, I mean, I've met him just a couple of times. Highly doubt he even really knows who I am, and nothing but respectful. Courteous. No arrogance or.
This is great. And look what he's done. The biggest podcast of all time. He's the biggest UFC cage fighter. He's a huge, massive comedian, built the club. He's just done so much for.
Yeah.
He's also pulled the fighters, and so many fighters and comedians are friends now. That has to be because of Rogan. It's all.
Oh yeah, I mean, my whole following is like MMA and UFC fighters.
That's a good
military men.
They're a good one.
Gun owning. That's why when these people thread me, I'm like, you have no idea who's going to be in my crowd. These people all come strapped. You might get to me, but you're gonna get it. So you should think about that.
Yeah. If you're gonna have Jake Shields at your show, it's like, come get me.
Well, I tried to go on the show, but you were canceled.
I was canceled. I know.
Yeah.
So, anything else we want to discuss before we wrap up?
No, just
where can people find you?
You can find me on X, obviously, big platform.
About the Indians?
Yeah, if you want to hear about the Indians, I'm always tweeting a couple jokes there. It's Leonarda is fun, and then the letter E, and then because an Indian.
A little hard.
Well, the Indian took my Leonarda is funny handle, and I can't get it back. And then on every other platform, YouTube, my YouTube's popping off. It's Leonarda is funny, just the way you spell funny, and on Instagram. And go to my website, really, like leonardaisfunny.com. Sign up. That's where I post all my tour dates. If you guys want to see me, when is this coming out, by the way?
Actually, I'm not even sure, to be honest.
Yeah, well, go check.
I have a bunch backed up. I got to figure out the order.
Yeah, check out my tour dates. I have to do shows in secret locations.
It's crazy.
So you buy the tickets, and then the day of, you get the location. So
it's so wild to do it for comedy.
Well, it's because Antifa can't afford tickets. So
interesting.
Yeah.
And Arthur Kwon, you have your website too. You might as well.
Oh, I don't want to steal your thunder. Yeah, just arthurkwonlee.com.
You're on here, you might as well.
Yeah, Twitter's at badasian, BAZN. Yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you,
thanks
Leonarda.
for having me.
Appreciate you.
Cool.